My wife had the locks changed on our house before I even made it back from the hardware store. I didn't find out standing on my own porch. I found out from a delivery driver who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth, holding out a taped-up envelope. "You're not gonna like this," he said. Wanted to hand it to you myself instead of leaving it taped to the door like a coward. He got back in his van before I even finished opening it. "My name is Nathan Brooks. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and for 22 years I was married to a woman named Vanessa Hale. 19 of those years, we built a software company together, starting at our kitchen table, ending with a $33 million acquisition offer from a Boston private equity firm. And on the day that deal was announced, she had a locksmith rekey our house before I finished buying a bag of deck screws. I didn't know it yet. But the lock wasn't going to be the part that actually hurt. I met Vanessa at a coffee shop near Belmont Boulevard back in 2005. It's a smoothie place now, everything changes. I was a mechanical engineering dropout working nights at a data center off I-40. She was finishing her MBA at Belmont University. 8 months later, we were engaged. 2 years after that, we got married at a park pavilion in East Nashville because it was free and neither of us wanted anything fancier. The company came out of an idea I scribbled on a legal pad at 3 in the morning, trying to solve a routing problem eating me alive at my day job. I built the algorithm myself. Filed the provisional patent using forms off the U.S. Patent Office's own website because we couldn't afford a lawyer. My name went on it. Sole inventor, Nathan Brooks. Vanessa turned that algorithm into a business. She wrote the pitch decks. She learned to read a cap table from nothing. She walked into rooms full of investors and talked them into believing that a guy who fixed his own furnace and a woman who'd never run a company could build something worth funding. She was genuinely remarkable at it. I want to be fair because I still believe in being fair even now. Vanessa built Crestline Analytics as much as I did, in some ways more. By the time we had 40 employees in an office off West End Avenue, she was CEO. I stayed head of engineering because I hated meetings, and she was better in them than I'd ever be. That felt like a fair split. It still would have, if she hadn't decided somewhere along the way that the split also meant the credit could quietly become hers alone. I remember the exact dinner I first noticed it. A company holiday party in a brick-walled restaurant in the Gulch, string lights everywhere, a reporter working the room for a feature on Nashville's growing tech scene. She found Vanessa first. "So how did Crestline Analytics get started?" the reporter asked, notebook out. "I saw a gap in the logistics software market," Vanessa said, "and built a team around solving it. I was standing right there, holding 2 drinks, one of them hers. She didn't look at me once. I told myself it was just a sound bite. I let it go. I was good back then at letting things go. There's a term for what happens in moments like that. Psychologists call it credit erosion, the slow process where one partner's daily, unglamorous contribution stops registering as contribution at all. It becomes furniture. You only notice it's gone once the room is empty. Our daughter Maddie is 24 now, works out in Austin. She's going to matter later, so hold on to her." The Monday everything came apart started with my phone buzzing while I rinsed a coffee mug. A text from a friend at the office, Renee, with a screenshot attached, an internal memo sent to the whole company 30 minutes earlier, announcing Crestline had signed a letter of intent to be acquired by Highmark Capital Partners for $33 million. I called Vanessa. She picked up out of breath like she was walking somewhere important. "You sold the company and I heard about it from Renee. I was going to tell you tonight. Tell me that it's happening. Or that it already happened. This isn't about you and me right now. This is business. It's not about you and me," I repeated. "I built the engine this entire company runs on at our kitchen table. I know." Nobody's forgetting that. Feels like somebody already has. She hung up first. 22 years and she'd never done that before. Small thing. I noticed it anyway. 2 days later, Highmark's due diligence team moved into the office. 3 lawyers. Sharp suits that made Nashville casual look like a costume. Renee texted me the play-by-play, half loyalty, half rattled nerves. They're pulling everything. Cap table, employment agreements, patent filings going back to 2007. Vanessa's basically living in the conference room. IP title verifications on their checklist for next week. Should I be worried about something? I asked. Not yet, I told myself. I didn't know how untrue that answer already was. By Friday, 3 days after the announcement, Vanessa sat across from me at our own kitchen table. The same wood grain I'd once sketched algorithms on, and told me she wanted a divorce. Effective immediately. I've already talked to a family attorney about an accelerated separation, given the transaction timeline. The transaction timeline. The deal needs clean corporate optics. A messy divorce filing mid-acquisition looks bad to Highmark's board. I need you out by the weekend. You're divorcing me for optics. I'm divorcing you because we haven't been a real marriage in years and you know it. The timing just happens to matter. Which part haven't we been real about? The part where I built the product, or the part where I stayed quiet while you told a reporter you built the company alone? That landed. She didn't have an answer ready, which almost never happened with her. That's not fair, she said finally. Neither is a locksmith showing up before I've packed a bag. Nobody's changed any locks, Nathan. Don't be dramatic. We'll see, I said. I meant it as an exit line, not a prediction. I didn't know yet how right I was about to be. Notice the language she reached for that night. Clean corporate optics, accelerated separation, the deal needs. Not I don't love you anymore. Language that reframes a person as a liability to be managed instead of someone to be reckoned with. That Saturday morning, my brother Greg called from Clarksville, where he runs a landscaping business and has never pretended to understand a word of what I do for a living. Vanessa's really kicking you out. We agreed the way you agree to a hostage situation. She named the terms. I picked the ending that let me keep breathing. Lisa already made up the guest room. I appreciate it. I need to be in the city, though. This isn't just a divorce. I found something in the company paperwork. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know it's not nothing. You've always done this, Greg said. Sit on something huge like it's a normal afternoon. Just don't do anything you can't undo out of spite, he added. I'm not doing this out of spite, I said. And I believed it, even if I understood, days later, why nobody watching their marriage end that fast would automatically believe me. I left that Saturday with 2 suitcases, my laptop, and a box of old engineering notebooks Vanessa's assistant had already packed for me. When I got to the porch, sure enough, my key didn't turn. She'd meant it when she said nobody had changed the locks. She just hadn't done it yet at the time she said it. I stood there a full minute, key in hand, staring at a door I'd repainted myself years earlier, and felt something shift in my chest I still can't fully describe. Not rage yet, something colder. Something that made a decision before the rest of me caught up. I checked into an extended stay place off Murfreesboro Pike, mini fridge, a view of a gas station, an ice machine down the hall that never stopped rattling. I sat on the edge of a stiff queen bed with my laptop open and did the one thing 22 years of marriage had somehow let me put off. I read our patent file. Actually read it, line by line, cross-referencing every filing against the patent office's own public database. Here's what I found. When I filed the original provisional patent in 2005, before the company even existed, it named exactly one inventor, me. When we incorporated in 2007, our first lawyer drew up an assignment moving my ownership into the company in exchange for founders' equity. Standard stuff. I remember signing something, a notary in the room, a blur of initials you don't question at 29. But that assignment only covered the asterisk provisional asterisk patent. When it converted into a full utility patent in 2009, a separate federal filing with its own inventor declaration, nobody ever filed a new assignment to match it. The 2007 paperwork simply didn't reach that far. Under U.S. patent law, an issued patent belongs to its named inventor unless that inventor has formally assigned it in writing, recorded with the patent office. Crestline had spent 17 years telling investors, employees, and now Highmark Capital that it owned the routing patent free and clear. It didn't. I did. I sat there with gas station coffee going cold on the nightstand and laughed once. The kind of laugh your body makes when it runs out of other options. 22 years of marriage, and the one document Vanessa never asked to see in her life was the only thing standing between her and $33 million. By sunrise, I hadn't fully decided if I was about to do something petty or something honest, but I'd decided enough to make a phone call. I called a patent attorney named David Kim, whose office sat in a converted warehouse in Wedgwood, Houston. A former Crestline engineer had used him once and mentioned the name at a company barbecue, mostly because David had brought an enormous drooling mastiff I'd spent 20 minutes talking to instead of the actual guests. I spread the documents across his conference table Monday morning. He went quiet, flipping pages slower and slower. You filed the provisional yourself before the company existed. And the 2007 assignment, you're sure this is the complete document? I called the patent office's public search line myself Sunday night. There's no recorded assignment for the utility patent. Just the provisional. You understand what this means? I think I do. It means Crestline has been representing to investors and now to a buyer that it owns clear title to its core patent. It doesn't, you do. Any acquisition built on that assumption falls apart the second Highmark's counsel finds this gap. In due diligence for a deal this size, they will find it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. What do I actually own here, David? I'm not trying to blow up her life. You own the right to say no. Nobody can assign, license, or sell that patent without your written, notarized consent. Right now, legally, you're the only person on earth who can make this acquisition close clean. And if you do nothing, you've quietly handed away sole ownership of a patent worth a meaningful chunk of $33 million to a company that just evicted you from your own house. I want to be treated like I actually existed in this story. Then let's make sure the record reflects that. Because right now, on paper, you're a ghost in your own invention. I want to be honest here. Because it would be easy to make myself sound like a mastermind who'd been sitting on a secret weapon for years, waiting to detonate it. That's not what happened. What happened is a woman I'd loved for 2 decades threw me out with less warning than she'd give a contractor. And 3 days later, the gap she'd never bothered to check turned out to be the only thing standing between her and the biggest transaction of her life. David filed a formal notice that Wednesday, 6 days after the acquisition was announced, informing Highmark's counsel and Crestline's board that the core patent had never been properly assigned, and that I had not consented to its transfer. Renee texted me that afternoon. You would not believe what just happened in the boardroom. Highmark's lead counsel walked in holding a legal notice and asked Vanessa, point blank in front of 2 partners, "Who is Nathan Brooks to this company?" She didn't have an answer. One of the partners said, "I thought this was a straightforward asset sale." The room went dead silent. "What did she say?" I asked. Eventually, a former technical advisor. After 19 years, the deal didn't die instantly. Big transactions never do, they go on life support first. Highmark suspended the closing timeline. The bank ready to wire funds that Friday put the transfer on hold pending resolution of the title defect. Highmark's lead counsel, a precise woman named Patricia Sloan who'd flown in from Boston, called David directly and asked to loop me in. "Mr. Brooks, I want to be straightforward. My client has no interest in a protracted title fight. We flagged this kind of gap as a top 5 risk category before we ever sent anyone here. We see it more than you'd think. In companies run by a founding couple, one handles the technical side, one handles the business side, and the legal housekeeping falls through the cracks. It happens because people trust each other, which is exactly why it's dangerous. I'd encourage you and Mrs. Hale's team to resolve this quickly. Every week this drags is a week our financing terms get more expensive for everyone, including, eventually, you." David looked at me after the line clicked off. "She's not bluffing. That's actually good for you. It means she's already told her own client you're not a problem that gets solved with a cheap check. I don't feel good about any of this. I feel like I'm dismantling my own marriage with a crowbar. You didn't build the crowbar, Nathan. You just finally picked it up." Vanessa called the following Friday, exactly 1 week after telling me to be out by the weekend. "We need to talk, in person." "Did you read the patent filings?" Silence told me everything. 19 years running that company, and she'd never once looked at the single document that determined who actually owned the thing she was about to sell. "There wasn't a reason to," she said. "I trusted our lawyer handled it back in 2007. He handled half of it. Nobody ever finished the other half because nobody ever asked. Are you doing this to punish me? I'm not doing anything. I'm just the only person who actually read the paperwork. We met at a diner in 12 South, not our old place. I couldn't have done that to either of us." She looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days, because she probably hadn't. "You could have told me," she said, "instead of blowing up the whole deal out of nowhere." "You could have told me," I said. Is a strange thing to hear from the woman who had my locks changed while I was buying deck screws. She didn't answer that. "I'm not trying to destroy anything," I said. "I helped build it too, in case that slipped your mind. I want a straight answer about what's actually mine, after 19 years of assuming somebody else was keeping track. What do you want?" "Nathan, I want you to admit out loud that you were about to sell something you didn't fully own, and that the only reason it didn't happen is because I read a folder you never opened." Long quiet. "Fine, you're right, I should have checked. Thank you. First honest thing you've said to me in 3 weeks. David had already told me exactly what my leverage was and wasn't, and I want to be clear about it. Because I've heard enough stories that stretch this part. I didn't own Crestline Analytics. I didn't get to demand the whole $33 million. What I owned was the patent the entire product was built on, and under federal law, that gave me the right to refuse assignment or negotiate fair compensation for transferring it. Highmark had already made it clear to Vanessa's team, no clean, notarized assignment from me, no deal. That gave me exactly one thing, not revenge, leverage. And for the first time in almost 20 years, a seat back at the table I'd built with my own hands and then let myself get quietly pushed away from. The negotiation took 11 days. Vanessa's first offer through her attorney was $200,000 for a voluntary courtesy assignment. David actually laughed reading it to me. "That's an insult wearing a business suit. The patent is the deal, Nathan. Without it, there's no $33 million. We countered with 3 things. Formal recognition as co-inventor of record, alongside 2 engineers whose real contributions had never been credited. A clean assignment of my ownership to Highmark for $6 million, and a small ongoing royalty structured over the life of the patent. This is extortion," Vanessa's attorney said on one call. David's voice went flat and calm. "It's federal patent law." My client is the sole legal owner of an asset your client's company spent 17 years claiming as its own without completing the paperwork. Call it whatever helps you sleep. The number stands. They came back at 3 million on day 6. We held 4.5 on day 8 with a smaller royalty attached, trying to trade one number for the other. David wouldn't let me take it. Hold the line, he said. Every day they negotiate instead of walking is a day that tells you Highmark needs this more than they're letting on. On day 10, Vanessa called me directly, skipping the lawyers. I'm not fighting you because I think you're wrong about the patent, she said. I'm fighting because agreeing to your number means admitting, in writing, that I ran a company for 19 years and never checked whether it actually owned its own technology. That's humiliating, Nathan. I know, I said, but it's true whether you sign or not. Signing only changes whether the company survives the correction with its deal intact. You could have let it close and said nothing. I could have. But you changed my locks before I finished buying deck screws. I stopped being interested in protecting your comfort the second I stood on that porch with a key that didn't work. What I found out later, again from Renee, was that the call that actually broke the stalemate wasn't between me and Vanessa at all. It was between Vanessa and Crestline's own board, two early investors from 2011 who'd watched their stake balloon for a decade. One of them, a quiet guy named Walter who never said much in meetings, apparently just looked at her and said, "You're letting pride cost this company $33 million. Sign whatever the man is asking, and let's close before Highmark finds a reason to walk on their own." 2 days later, her lawyers accepted the $6 million and the royalty, essentially unchanged from what David and I had proposed on day 1. We signed on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after a confused delivery driver had handed me an eviction notice on my own front step. Vanessa and I barely spoke beyond what the paperwork required. "You really weren't planning this," she said quietly, while the notary organized her stamps. "Not a question. No, I was planning to grill something and go to bed early. You're the one who moved the furniture around." At one point, signing the assignment page, my hand actually shook not from fear, but from the strange, specific weight of watching something I'd sketched on a legal pad in 2005 become, on paper, officially mine. In a way it had somehow never quite been, while I was married to the woman running the company built on top of it. The deal closed 9 days later. 33 million, minus my settlement minus fees, moved into accounts that no longer had anything to do with me. Vanessa kept the house. I didn't fight her for it. I'd never wanted the house nearly as much as I wanted to matter. Maddie flew home while everything was finalizing. We sat at that same diner in 12 South. I go there a lot now, honestly. The pie's grown on me, and she asked a question I wasn't ready for. "Are you happy, Dad?" "I'm not happy your mom and I are done," I said. "I loved her. Some part of me probably still does, the way you love a house you used to live in. But I'm not sorry I stopped letting myself disappear inside something I helped build with my own hands. That part I'm proud of. For what it's worth," she said, "I always knew the algorithm was yours. Mom used to say it in interviews like it came out of nowhere. I remember watching you build it. I was 7, you let me hold the soldering iron once, and Mom nearly had a heart attack. She still doesn't know I let you do that twice." Maddie laughed, the first real laugh either of us had. Managed in weeks, and put her hand over mine. "Do you regret not checking the paperwork sooner?" "Every day a little. But if I'd fixed it quietly years ago, none of this would have forced the conversation your mom and I clearly needed to have. Sometimes the crack in the foundation is the only thing that gets anybody to finally look at the house. I used the settlement to start something I'd wanted since I was 26 and too broke to. Consider it, a small engineering consulting firm. Just me and 2 contractors, out of a rented office, a few miles from the house Vanessa kept. We solve routing and logistics problems for companies too small to ever land on Highmark's radar. I like that every contract has my name on it. Clearly, with no ambiguity, anybody would need a patent attorney to untangle years down the line. Renee left Crestline about 4 months after the deal closed and came to work for me instead. Her first week, unpacking boxes, she said something that stopped me cold. "I have to tell you something, and I need you to not hate me for it. I found the assignment gap 18 months before you did, during a records cleanup back when I was still in operations." I knew exactly what it meant. I set the folders down slowly. "You knew this whole time. I sat on it. I'm not proud of it." Vanessa passed me over for a VP role twice, promised an equity refresh both times, let it quietly lapse both times. I told myself I was being loyal by staying quiet. The truth is, I was waiting. I didn't know for what, until the acquisition got announced, and I realized that gap wasn't going away on its own. So I sent you that screenshot the second the internal memo went out. Faster than I needed to, if I'm honest. I wanted you looking at the paperwork before anybody had time to think about closing quietly. I stood there a long moment, running the whole timeline back through my head in a different light. Renee hadn't just been a friend feeding me information out of loyalty. She'd loaded the gun over a year before I ever picked it up, and waited for the moment it would matter most to hand it to me. "Are you angry?" she asked. "I'm trying to figure out if I should be. You didn't lie to me. You just let me think I found something on my own that you'd already been sitting on. Would it have changed anything if you'd known sooner?" "No," I said honestly. "It still would have ended the same way. You just made sure I actually looked. Instead of letting 19 years of trusting the wrong things keep me from ever opening that folder at all. There's a version of this story where I'm the only one who acted. That version isn't true. What actually happened is two people who'd both been quietly overlooked by the same company, for different reasons, ended up handing each other exactly what the other one needed at exactly the right moment. Neither of us planned it that way. It just turned out that way. Vanessa and I finalized the divorce 2 months after the acquisition closed. Highmark kept her on as an advisor through the transition, then quietly let the arrangement lapse. I don't know what she's doing these days. I've stopped checking. Sitting in that hotel room off Murfreesboro Pike, with a stiff mattress and a gas station sign glowing through the blinds. I didn't know it yet, but the woman who threw me out because I'd become an inconvenience was about to learn something I'd known all along and never once thought to use as a weapon. You can build an entire company around a person, sell it for millions, and change every lock in the house, and still not erase a name from a federal patent filing just because you've stopped wanting to see it there. Some signatures don't come off that easily. So that's the story. If you'd been in my position, standing on that porch with a key that didn't work, what would you have done? Would you have walked away, or would you have gone home and read the paperwork like I did? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. And if this story meant something to you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real, family-centered stories like this one. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.